Joining us on the program right now from the Virginia Shooting Sports Association, Mr. Dave Adams. How are you, Dave?
I'm great, Cam. Thanks for invitation.
Absolutely. It's fascinating to see this story. Quinnipiac University did a poll in Virginia asking about attitudes towards Mayor Bloomberg and his push for gun control here in the state. And Dave, it's interesting. The New York Post says anti-gun Mike is a hero in Virginia. And yet the Quinnipiac poll shows a majority of Virginians say Bloomberg needs to butt out of the state.
Yeah, it just goes to show that it's the person who's writing the headline that matters, because we have another story that we're carrying in our e-bullet news brief that we send out to our members every Friday about the same story, and the headline on that one was poll, Virginians tell Bloomberg to butt out after guns comment.
Yeah, well, and Matt Drudge just tweeted the story from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. 15 people show up at Bloomberg anti-gun rally. That was in Richmond.
Yeah, down at the Caroline yesterday at 3 o'clock. A big crowd. You know, it's a huge park, so those people probably got lost out there with such a small group of them.
Yeah. You know, Dave, when you see these types of stories, and the New York Post, you know, I got to say, I expected a headline like that in the New York Daily News, perhaps, but not really the New York Post. But when you see this, you know, this concerted effort to blame the state of Virginia for New York's gun violence, when the state of Virginia has a lower violent crime rate than the state of New York, and our crime rate has been getting better. As a matter of fact, Richmond, Virginia itself, 30-year lows in the homicide rate this summer, I understand.
Yep. And, you know, the interesting thing about the New York Post story, they didn't mention this little tidbit out of the poll. You know, 57% of the people surveyed did not believe Bloomberg's claim and said he should stay out of the Virginia gun debate. Now, you know, when you look at the crosstabs and look at women, split more 48-48 on that, but overall, I mean, almost 60% are telling Bloomberg to, you know, stay out of Virginia business and deal with his own situations up there.
So I'm just curious, Dave, how do you think this is going to impact perhaps this year's governor's race and, you know, maybe even the midterms next year in the state of Virginia?
Well, you know, Terry McAuliffe doesn't really want to talk about the gun issue in Virginia. We saw a couple weeks ago that he, you know, weaved and bobbed when he was asked about the so-called assault weapons ban. He doesn't even address the issue on his website at all. So I don't think that Mr. McAuliffe thinks it's a winning issue in the Commonwealth. If it was, he'd be talking a lot more about it. I will say, however, that Virginians who are gun owners need to get engaged in this election, because if Mr. McAuliffe wins, no matter who may be in control of the House of Delegates in the General Assembly, for 4 years, we're going to hear him repeat the same call of the gun ban lobby, because they are clearly supporting him in this election.
Well, absolutely, and that's the thing. You know, it's the funniest thing, Dave. There are a lot of politicians. If there's a politician who doesn't really want to talk about guns during an election, that means they probably want to do something about guns if they get elected.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So we know where Terry McAuliffe stands. He came out earlier this year and said he supported a brand new quote-unquote assault weapons ban. Now he says, well, you know, I think I'd focus on background checks first. But frankly, look, we know Terry McAuliffe would likely support any gun control measure that President Obama supports. I've seen nothing from Terry McAuliffe to indicate otherwise.
I think you're right. And what gun owners need to be aware of, too, that even if a gun control bill doesn't make it to his desk,
right,
if a pro-gun bill does make it to his desk, it's going to be a little bit more iffy about whether that bill gets signed than if Tim Cuccinelli is sitting at that desk.
Well, no, that's absolutely right. And you're right. Gun owners have had we've had some pretty good years in the state of Virginia over the past few years. But if you don't have a governor who supports your right to keep and bear arms, they can do a lot of harm.
I mean, we had, and that's Democrats and Republican governors. We had Mark Warner probably signed the most pro-gun bills at any one session back in 2004. And then you had Tim Kaine, who, signed some good bills and vetoed some really good bills. Then you've had Bob McDonald, who has repealed the restaurant ban on concealed carry. He has repealed handgun rationing in the last 2 years. And so, we've had it pretty good, but, if you get it, McAuliffe, he's going to be a lot more like Tim Kaine was than Mark Warner.
Yes, that's a very, very good way of putting it, Dave. Anyway, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show, sir. How are things looking outside of politics or outside of the elections in Virginia or even the governor's race? Are there other races where gunners should be paying attention?
Well, you've got the lieutenant governor's race, which is important because that's a tie-breaking vote in the state Senate. It's currently a 20-20 split in the state Senate, so it's important we have a pro-gun lieutenant governor sitting there presiding over the state Senate. His Democratic opponent in the race is not pro-gun, Senator Northam. And, in fact, he bragged during the primary campaign, that he was no friend of the NRA. And then in the Attorney General's race, that's an equally important campaign. And you've got Senator Mark Obenshain, who is very pro-gun, versus Senator Mark Herring from Northern Virginia, who definitely is not pro-gun. So we've got three very important races statewide this year. We need gun owners engaged. A recent poll came out in the governor's race showing that Ken Cuccinelli is trailing by about 6 points among likely voters. That could affect down-ticket races, probably more so the lieutenant governor's race than the attorney general's race, because I think Obenshain is considered to be the favorite by most pundits around here. But anything can happen if you get, the governor's race goes strongly one way or the other. That could impact your down-ticket races.
It could. I just out of curiosity, Dave, are you seeing, I was having a conversation with Jim Garrity about this last night over dinner, and I said, well, maybe after Labor Day, that's when folks start paying attention here. We got folks who are involved with summer vacation and, summer activities, and maybe when the kids go back to school and Labor Day comes and all of a sudden we turn our attention to politics. Do you anticipate seeing a ramping up in terms of activism and volunteering after Labor Day?
I think so. Generally, the summer is your lull in the campaigns in Virginia. We try to get folks engaged during the summer so they'll be, ready to hit the ground running when September comes. And I'm hopeful that that's going to be the case. It's an important election this year. We need people to understand there's a clear difference, probably like never before in the governor's race since all the way back to 1993 when you had George Allen versus Mary Sue Terry. Most of the candidates running for governor since '93 have all said they were pro Second Amendment, and most of them have, pretty much stayed to that once they got elected. This year is very important. You've got two very different candidates running for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, and so we need everybody to get involved now.
Listen, Dave, thank you again for coming on the program. It's awesome talking to you, and have a great weekend, sir.
All right, thanks, Cam. You too.
You bet. Dave Adams joining us with the Virginia Shooting Sports Association right here on Cam.